Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Harika. So in this video, we will see how we can pass the data as a parameter. So till now in the previous video, we have passed the data statically using the particular workflows, right? So if you're having a data that has to go into here, we have passed it in this way. So in this video, I am going to show you how we can pass it through the parameters. So that will be helpful when we are actually going for a workflow wherein you have to send the multiple, huge amount of data. This will be really helpful in that portion. So let's take a next step, which is passing the value through parameters. So for that, I'm going to create a workflow. And I will be using the previous connect itself, the one that I'm taking here. So just paste it. You don't have to do anything because all the properties of the connection remains the same. So you just have to give the variable name. So if you see here, we are connected to demo database name, just like how I have shown in the previous exam video. So we've made the connection, and I'd like to take the same query and go over and pass it in here. So if you see, I have this particular query, right? So previously I was passing the values from here itself. So now I'm taking a different approach where I'm going and creating the arguments here that will be passed as a parameter. Okay. So now for that, what I'm doing, I'm giving student name. It's an input parameter. We can pass it as an input. So what is the value that you wanted to pass it? Either you can do it dynamically by creating a variable. That's one way. So let's say I am creating a variable. Okay. So I'm creating a variable where, I'll just give just name. Okay. And let's go for student ID. Just give create a variable ID. And then I have something called as marks. And here create one more variable, marks. Okay. And then the final one is grade. So for creation of argument, you just have to create it here. You don't have to create it somewhere. So just make sure that you just give the name of the value. And then here I'm creating a variable, which is student grade, just to make sure that it is different from what is the value that I'm giving over here. Okay, so just say okay. And then here you have to pass the parameters here, how it will take. So for that, there's a syntax. Let me expand this a bit. So just remove this line off from here, and then just give @student name, @student ID, whatever the arguments that you have provided in the parameter window, @marks, and @grade. So just close the braces and then put it inside the double quotes. So if you see here, okay, say okay, go here and check the collection. Under parameters collection, you can see these are the values that we have created. So here it says marks. So I'm going to create this variable, change the variable name because it's same as the argument, right? So here I'll just change student marks. Okay. So the values that argument and the variable has the different naming convention. Okay. So that's it. We have created the variables and these are the parameters. So now the thing is, just change this one as well. Right, so we are good with this. So now the thing is, I wanted to give in the values through input dialog, okay, or through when the process is running, or else you can just give the values here by default values, whatever the values that you want. Okay, so just say name and ID and marks or let's say you wanted to enter marks dynamically by seeing the student name or something, okay, then you can take this off from here, and then you can take it off directly from the input dialog. I'll show you shortly how we can do that. And then grade as well. That's it, I think. 4 rows, right? So perfect. So let's go for input dialog. Okay, just pull this over here. And then if you see here, it's a text box and the label, everything is over here. So just go to properties, and here you can see this is the input and this is the output value. So whatever the value that you are passing here, so this should be student marks. Okay, so the output from this, whatever the user enters in, will be saved into student marks. And what is the dialog title? Okay, so for the title I wanted to provide something like, provide the marks of the student. Okay, so this is my dialog. This should be in double quotes because this is a string, right? So what you can do to make it a little customized, provide the marks of the student, right? This is just the title, and the label here, I can provide the label. This is of this type string, right? So marks for student named. Okay, you can just provide in the name of the student, or just like this. Okay, name, whatever the name of the student. Okay, and just say okay. And after that, it's of type text box, and then these are the values. Okay, so just see how we can provide in these values. Let me put a default grade because that is something which we are not taking as an input. Okay, fine. Now let's debug this and see how this actually executes. Okay, we can see that the project started running, and here whatever the student name that we have provided, it is asking marks for the student of this name. So here the user can provide in the values. So let's say I have provided 53. Okay, 53 is the marks. And now let's go to our studio. Yeah, I'm going to delete the values, so all the values are deleted. And now let's see, we don't have any rows, so it should provide in the value from the whatever the values it has fetched from the variables, right? So that means it has to provide the name as Harika, and the ID is 1, 2, 3, 4, marks as the ones that I provided in the dialog box, which is 53, and the grade should be B. Okay, so let's go and say okay here. Where is the dialog box? Okay, so just say okay, and the program has finished execution. So let's execute this query. This is perfect, right? So we haven't provided any class, but this is the values that we have provided, which is as expected. So this is how we can actually pass the parameters into a particular query. Okay, so I hope this part is clear for you. You just have to create the parameters and provide in the values, and you can just pass it. So let's say if you wanted to provide in the static values, you can just do that from here. Okay, so if you see, this can also be done. Just debug the file. And it will ask you for the value 67. Say okay. Just after the execution of this workflow, yes, if the execution is done, just come over, execute. So if you see, these values got reflected, right? So what you can understand from here is, even though if you give a default value here, even if the default value is there, but the value that I have provided in the parameter window, which is this one. This will be overridden. Okay, this will take off the one that's there in the default window. If this is not provided, this one will be taken. Otherwise, the ones that you can give it from the input dialog box, which is through the user, so you can do it in that way as well. So this is how we can actually pass the parameters. So the same, this would remains the same for all other you know statements. So we have seen for insert statement, right? So in the same way for update statement as well, you just have to pass the parameter value here. So let's say I wanted to update where student name is Monica, right? So this value, okay, here we have two different things, right? So let's look into this part as well, but for the delete and the selection, I will leave it as an assignment for you guys itself, but just look into this one thing alone. Okay, so now what exactly I'm going to do here, I have to pass let's say if the student name is Monica, I wanted to change that into this. Okay, so for that let me take a argument, okay, which is student name, as I already have name of the student, right? Name, and student ID as ID. I have the variables created already, so I'm not going to change them. Student marks, and then the one is grade as student grade. Okay, so these things I wanted to update. So for updating it, firstly I have to change the values from here, so it should take from here. So what I'm going to do, at the rate student name, right? Let's expand this a bit. There is one small logic that you have to consider here, and then at the rate marks, just you have to provide in the same values as that of the arguments that you are providing at the rate grade. So this is perfect, we have aligned everything. So now the thing is, here we still have the static data. So if this value you wanted to take it from the input dialog box, you can either keep that. Let me show you how we can do. Let's say I'm going to change this as at let's say particular student. Okay, just copy this whole text. Okay, and say okay, just cross check the parameters here. I have everything, right? And you have to create this particular student that is passing over there. So I would say this is a new variable. Okay, so I'm going to take this variable as new student or old student. I want to replace the old student. Okay, I have created the old student name here. So let's change this as, I'm gonna give 56 or something like 90, and change this to 489, and this name should be changed to Chandler. Okay, okay, because we already have the data that is there with the existing information. So I'm going to comment this insert statement, and I'm going to update. So basically we already have the data whose name is Monica and Harika. So I'm going to change this to Chandler if the name is something. Okay, so that name I'm going to get it from here, where the value, the result value should be the old student. Okay, so what I'm doing exactly, the old if I'm passing the name here, whenever the name is old student, that should be passed here. Okay, if you see here, we are passing this as here. So if the name is old student, then we want to replace all these values with the variable values that are here, so just debug this and see how this actually works. So by end of this workflow, whatever the value that I'm giving has to be replaced with the new values. Okay, so just ignore this text. We haven't changed this yet. So what is the name that I'm giving? Harika. Okay, so that means this row value has to be changed with the new values. Okay, let's see. Say okay, it has finished the execution. So let's select this, then execute. Perfect, right? And now if you wanted to do the same thing for that, you just have to provide in the name. So for Harika, you have to pass the student name as Monica. Okay, let's see that. Okay, done. Both should be of the name Chandler. Perfect, right? So this is how we can actually pass the values as a parameters in the arguments into the queries, and we can execute query and execute non-query. So now I have shown you the basic one, and also how you can do it by changing the things in the update query. So delete is kind of similar, it doesn't change much apart from what we have seen here. And also with respect to select, so I want you to take up that as a hands-on practice for yourself, and do try it out. If you are facing any questions, do let me know in the comments. I will answer your comments, and if at all, if the error is not resolving, or if I feel that can be useful for others, I'll definitely try to make a video on it and try to cover the concept on it. And that's all in this video. In next video, I'm going to talk about how we can upload a bulk number of rows into a particular database, and how we can fetch them in a single go. So these are some things which are close to the real-time projects. So now we got good understanding on how to pass the parameters. So the next step would be passing the things through parameters in a bulk. So I hope you would like that video. If you don't want to miss the video, do subscribe to my channel so you'll get the notification as soon as I release the video. Thank you so much for watching.